our clerk, Nyegenye, is an expert in drafting. We have a weakness in Kenya on drafting of legislation. And therefore, it's important as the intern that we begin to get people who are good draftspersons. Because all these senators need people who can help them draft legislation. And it's always a challenge, Mr. Speaker. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, that you can give them good certificates once they leave the Senate for purposes of the work they have done. The same way I was expecting my chairman to write a good report about the people who drafted our report, like we did with Senator Sakaja, when we got an excellent report from our people working under our good clerk here, Mr. Nyegenye, on the Solai report. We wrote a recommendation to say we appreciate the work of the Secretariat. I want to say on the floor that Eunice Gishangi, Dr. Okello did a good job on our report. And Mr. Speaker, when we were doing the constitutional amendment bill, we should have had these interns in the room. I didn't see the interns, or maybe they came this week. They should have been there. And Mr. Speaker, let's hope that you will attach them to every committee, let them participate, give them work to do, let them draft legislation. Mr. Nyegenye, give these people work to do, let them draft anything under the sun, and grade them, so that by the time they leave here, this should have been a very useful course for them. Bill Clinton became president by just visiting the Congress. So there's a lot to learn. And it's a privilege to sit in the Speaker's chamber. So I hope it's going to be useful to you, and we wish you well. Thank you.
Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a problem with my card. Speaker, allow me to join colleagues in welcoming this cohort of interns to the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, indeed, as Senator Mutula has said, and I think other colleagues, encouragement to them is that never ever despise any humble beginnings. Mr. Speaker, Senator Mutula used to be a messenger in the law firm of his father. He was a messenger, he cleaned windows. Mr. Speaker, I started my political career lower than an intern. I was a driver in President Kibaki's time. And many others have such stories. Mr. Speaker, I want to recommend to them a book that I am currently reading. When you get time, look for a book called The Power Broker. It's the story of Robert Moses and the fall of New York City. And then you will see what you're doing, not as a destination, but as part of a journey, and as a beginning of a journey in case you're interested in public service. Mr. Speaker, additionally, I'd just like to give them further encouragement that it may not always be easy, but once you have a vision of where you want to be, act as if you're already there. If you want to be a senator, if you want to be a president, if you want to be an MP, if you want to be a lawyer, do not wait to get there. But wherever you are right now, walk like one, dress like one, talk like one, read like one, and you'll be able to get there. If you can perceive it, then you can be it, and you can get there. Mr. Speaker, we are all living testament of that very simple fact, Mr. Speaker. And so I hope that we will get to interact with them, and I will urge them, unlike others, do not want to be like us. Please be greater than us. Do not seek to copy us, but to top us, and to excel beyond where we have reached, because that is what generational transformation and reengineering is all about, Mr. Speaker. So Asanteni, and Mr. Speaker, I pray that as has been suggested, during the course of their work, you can attach them to different offices for them to learn firsthand what we deal with. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and welcome to the Senate.
Senator Musurve.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to support you in welcoming the youth in this house. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this is a very essential prerequisite into exiting into the world of work, because one thing, they'll have hands-on on the job. And Honorable Speaker, there's no way you can really get the practical aspect of working other than when you are an intern or interacting with the industry. And these youths have an opportunity to interact with the industry, and they're going to get the practical, the pragmatic aspects that they cannot even get in colleges, in institutions, and other areas of learning. It is time for them to really get practical knowledge, and I want to tell them through the speaker that practical knowledge is important, and knowledge is power. It is only power when it is shared, and not only when it is shared, but also when it is utilized, Honorable Speaker. So I want to also urge them to really make maximum use of their stay here to ensure that they have a passion for working, and even ask for more work. The more work you're given, the more experience you have, Honorable Speaker. And once you get experience in the world of work, it becomes a seamless way of getting into the industry and eventually perfecting all the skill that you have purpose to do. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that it is an opportunity also for them to even see what happens in the industry in terms of communication, verbal communication, non-verbal communication. So I urge them to really have their eyes open and see what good they can pick even from legislation, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I support you in welcoming the youth. Thank you.
Senator Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker, one of my memorable experience as a student is sitting at the gallery in the National Assembly and watching Senator Orengo, Honorable Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, Mukisa Kitui, Honorable Wetangula, Amos Wako, the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, as a student, I was so inspired. I had just come from the university. I was not even officially there as an intern. I just got inspired that I really didn't want to get back to Embobut after coming to Nairobi for the first time, Mr. Speaker, because some of us came to Nairobi for the first time to join the university. So I told myself I must go and give a real story in the village about how Parliament is working. And Mr. Speaker, it is well seated at that very gallery at the National Assembly, and I suspect, it wasn't this chamber actually, it was the other chamber, that Mr. Speaker, I got so inspired and I was wishing that one day I would be a member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, in less than 10 years, I did not imagine that I would come and sit here with the same heroes, Mr. Speaker, that I looked up to and who have continued to be a great inspiration. I believe the interns who are here are not just here to learn and write reports for purpose of their academic papers, but Mr. Speaker, that they are here also for inspiration to watch what we are doing, and particularly when we are debating a very important subject matter, which is the amendment of our Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, I wish they were here earlier when we were also debating matters, division of revenue, because it was very heated. And I know many Kenyans followed. I would like to tell the interns who are here that this is an opportunity for you to also get inspired and to be ready to come here and join me and others, Mr. Speaker, that you would have been watching when you were in the university, just like I did join others, Mr. Speaker, who are ahead of me. But most importantly, it's an inspiration for them to prepare themselves for a path of changing this country, that, Mr. Speaker, in whatever they do, even if they don't join politics, they will have the opportunity to inspire this nation. And Mr. Speaker, one of my most memorable jobs and most inspiring jobs is when I was a lecturer at the university. Mr. Speaker, it was a honesty job, it was straightforward, it was inspiring. I got inspired by students. I had an opportunity also to inspire them. Mr. Speaker, I hope in this bunge, we can try as much as possible to apply the little we knew. Even a half of, Mr. Speaker, theoretically we used to teach. And I want to tell them not to copy the bad manners that is in us in politics, pick the positive things, and continue the life of inspiration in whatever they do. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to also join my colleagues to congratulate the interns who have joined us. The Speaker, I will only say three things. One, an internship program is very, very important for people who are interested in organic career growth. Organic growth, Mr. Speaker, where you go through the stages right from the bottom to the topmost position that you can ever achieve. The Speaker, I want to tell the interns that personally I am a good product of internship. I was inscripted, the Speaker, into politics and went through a very serious, rigorous internship program for more than 24 years, sitting at the feet of my brother, who was a member of parliament, being given opportunities, the Speaker, to make mistakes and learn from my own mistakes. So for the interns, I want to call upon them and challenge them to aspire to do whatever job, whatever task is put ahead of them without necessarily worrying too much about the mistakes that may accrue in the process of undertaking the tasks, because it is through those mistakes that you learn and sharpen your skills. The second thing that I want to say, which has been said by my colleagues, do not try to be like any one of us or like another person. Just be yourself. My lecturer at the university told me that you cannot ape and hope to create. For you to be innovative and creative, just be yourself, do what is the right thing to do. And lastly, I've heard Senator Murkomen saying that he wishes that you were here during the debate on that basis for the allocation of resources to counties, because that debate was robust. But you have not missed anything. Mr. Murkomen should have told you, Senator Murkomen should have told you, that we are in the middle of an equally robust debate on the BBI bill. So take your time, learn the ropes, and aspire to be creative. The Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Mudama Agnes Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me to join you and join the rest of my colleagues in welcoming the interns to this house. I want to say that this is an opportunity that many young people cry for. They've always said that they want to be on the table where things are being discussed. And so this is an opportunity for you to learn and to encourage also others to join. I just want to tell you that as you learn, I'm sure God will be with you, and I'm sure you will go very far as you learn from this Senate House. Please take your time, do what is right, and desire to learn more and more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Falhada Iman by virtue. Senator Falhada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Am I heard?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join my colleagues to welcome the interns who are at the chamber today, gallery. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very important for the interns to be at the moment, because there's a crucial meeting going on, a discussion for the constitution amendments. Let's not welcome them at the chamber, please, Mr. Speaker. As Senator Mutula said, we can as well assign them to different committees for them to learn more, and they can be better, because these are the future leaders. The youth are they are future leaders. At the same time, there are people who are, going to drive this the country and well. So I welcome them. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators. I just want to reiterate what I said in my communication about virtual contribution, that you must be in an office and in an environment that is clearly an office, not some funny motorbike or, or a bicycle or something like that. That I will not allow. So I know that people can use motorbikes, Senator Shionga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join you and my colleagues in welcoming these young men and women seated in the gallery here today. I want to tell them that they are very fortunate. They are very fortunate enough to have joined the institute that have welcomed them to do practicals or to learn more from the institute. Mr. Speaker, mine is just to tell them that it is a noble idea that you chose. Make use of that opportunity, because there are many young women there who have done their courses, and where to get attachments or internship is very hard. One. Two, it is one of the best, the institute that you have chosen is one of the best that you can make wings out of it to fly. Make use of the opportunity, learn more. What you see here, leave it here, but take what makes you happy and go ahead. One day you might join us and be the best out of yourself. Be great women, be great men in Kenya. Welcome, and thank you very much for coming here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Let me begin by taking these young men and women in my own personal journey. Back in 1994, I was given an opportunity to work for Reuters International, and we started a program called Africa Journal. I was an intern. Back then, my adopted father, his name is Jared Williams, asked me to stand behind him and to watch everything that he does. I did that, and I credit my success in life to what I learned as an intern. I want to challenge you to really think outside the box and ask yourself, what does an intern need to do? An intern needs to be able to take in what the trainee or the master is doing and do it much better. You guys have a good opportunity. We didn't have an opportunity to be able to be interns in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya or the Parliament of Kenya. This is where we make laws. And I think for you now, it is about time that you immerse yourself into the art of research. You know, make sure you don't wait to be told do this and do that. You know, when you are working in the corporate world as an intern, most of the time you are made to become a coffee person. You know, go bring coffee. You know, I did that in the UK. But you have an opportunity now to be able to change your future. While you're here, make sure that you make friends. And you make friends who will be meaningful to your life. Look at the committees that we have. I sit in the health committee. We are dealing with issues which requires the national approach. Do research or go into any other committee like the health committee, the energy committee, look at the devolution committee, and try to ask yourself, what can I do better? And in most cases, because you have a lot of time, you can carry out research that can be able to enrich even our discussion in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to just end by saying that for you now, you have an opportunity to determine even how these members here contribute in this House. You know, any member you are assigned with, any committee that you are assigned to, make sure you do the research. You go sit down and talk to the members of the clerks of the committees. Find out how they are getting their research done. And whenever they're writing, you can even suggest that you do a draft of that letter of the invitation. That will propel you to greater things. Otherwise, I want to welcome you and just want to challenge you to continue using us so that when you leave here, you'll either come back here or you'll be able to work in the civil service, that you'll be able to leave a mark from your brief moment from your mother's womb to your tomb. You'll be able to remember that your journey started here. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 2, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, second reading, resumption of debate.
Senator Mutula Kalonzo Jr. What?
Speaker, before we proceed, I thought, and I was just thinking, that traditionally, and this we discussed with Senator...
Order, Senators. There's a lot of movement. Let's listen to Senator Mutula Jr.
And I discussed this with Senator Sakaja a few minutes ago. Would I be in order to propose, Mr. Speaker, that you cause the speech of the President of Tanzania to be tabled, debated, or noted because of the international obligations that were referred to in that speech and our role in those international obligations, Mr. Speaker, so that we can note those, appreciate the statements and the speech, Mr. Speaker, which is one of its kind. So I thought, Mr. Speaker, you make some communication on it. Thank you.
Okay, order, Senators. Of course, Senator Mutula Kalonzo Jr. has raised a very valid point. That's why you are being told to listen. You are walking around and you... Please listen to what is being contributed. What? So that is allowed. In fact, standing order number 24(5) says, whenever the President delivers an address, a senator may, as soon as practicable, thereafter lay the presidential address on the table of the Senate following the reading of such address. As soon as, when it's practicable. So we are saying, once we are done with the BBI, because this is also important, we cannot disrupt the contributions, but immediately we are done with that, we'll have it laid on the table, and then have it discussed. As soon as practical, if we conclude with this, then we will lay it and discuss. I don't foresee that happening today. Yeah, this is a special sitting. Yeah, it can only be next week when we resume. Senator Malala.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the history of mankind and in various jurisdictions around the world, constitutional amendment processes are always a very important moment. And this calls for us leaders, Mr. Speaker, to participate and contribute in this very important debate, Mr. Speaker. As a leader, Mr. Speaker, in August 2017, I was elected to represent the people of Kakamega through my beloved party, ANC, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Article 1(2) of the Constitution is very clear that the people may exercise their sovereign power, either directly or through their democratically elected leaders, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so in my submissions today, these submissions are basically the voice of the people of Kakamega and the position of my party, ANC. I want to make it crystal clear today, Mr. Speaker, that my party position is that we do support BBI. We support the constitutional amendment bill that is before us, and that is the position of my party. We have cited various reasons as to why we support this very important document, Mr. Speaker. But just before I highlight one or two issues that we do take as a focal attention, Mr. Speaker, allow me first to comment on the process of amending our constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the drafters of the 2010 constitution were cheeky, Mr. Speaker, because, Mr. Speaker, I wonder how they provided for, and some of them are seated in this house, Mr. Speaker, complaining why we cannot even amend this document. And yet they participated in drafting the 2010 constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wonder why such an important process can come through Parliament, and yet we cannot amend the proposals as brought before us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Parliament has been given a ceremonial role in this matter. I wonder why, Mr. Speaker, we spend a lot of time committing this very important document to the JLAC committee, Mr. Speaker. They sat in very expensive hotels in this town, Mr. Speaker, trying to consider this matter, Mr. Speaker, only to be told that we do not have powers to amend even a comma, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, nevertheless, I want to commend the JLAC committee who have interrogated and dissected this document and come up with a very good report, Mr. Speaker. It is sad that the findings of the JLAC committee are going not to help this document improve its current value, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that in future, even as we amend this constitution, let us look at possible ways in which we can allow Parliament to interrogate and...
Order, senators. Order. Respect the House. Cherargei, you have become so nomadic. Please try to, whatever you are doing, we may need to know. Senator Malala, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. Mr. Speaker, I was submitting as follows, that it is important in future, Mr. Speaker, when we shall have another opportunity to amend the law, let us give Parliament powers, Mr. Speaker, to amend and correct the inconsistencies of a bill that is brought before this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is my humble submission that in future, even before the bill goes for signatures, Mr. Speaker, let the bill come through this House. Let us do all the amendments that we are supposed to do before we go to collect signatures and subsequently go to the county assembly, so that we have an opportunity as Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we exercise our powers as enshrined in the Constitution under Article 94 of the current Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I want to go back to why we support this document as a party. One, because of the aspect of devolution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am a product of devolution. I was first elected as a member of County Assembly. I became the Deputy Speaker for Kakamega County Assembly. And here I am, the Senator representing the people of Kakamega. And therefore...
What's your point of order, Senator Linturi?
Mr. Speaker, I've had a lot of interest for a long time in following up the debate from my good friend, Senator Malala. But I'm lost because I'm not able to follow him up clearly, because in this chamber, we are discussing the Constitutional Amendment Bill, supposed to give us ideas or opinion about us, a member of parliament. I've even opened the Constitution on under Article 96 on the role of the Senate. So having listened to him, the position he is advancing before this House is that position of a political party. Is he in order, Mr. Speaker, to come push for a position of a political party, or is supposed to debate this bill as a member of parliament representing the people of Kakamega, and not a political position, a political party position?
Mr. Speaker, I wonder why some people call themselves learned friends, Mr. Speaker. We are in this house, Mr. Speaker,
Senator,
elected by the...
Senator, don't impute improper motive on a colleague.
Mr. Speaker, I was elected in this house by the people of Kakamega through a political party. Even when it comes to voting on the floor of this house, we are whipped based on our political parties. And therefore, it is not a crime for me to come and make submissions and elaborate the position of my party. I am a member of ANC, and I will still remain a member of ANC.
Senator Cherargei, what's your intervention?
Mr. Speaker, since I've settled down, I remember, Mr. Speaker, you have ruled before that we should desist bringing party issues to the floor of the House. And on many occasions, you have ruled us out of order when we have raised issues based on party issues. So is Senator Malala in order to bring party issues before the floor of the House? Yes, she should be just debating on the issues that concerns the constitutional amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators. I think let us not divert attention. It's not anyway, it is not bad from making his views and occasionally referring to his party, which brought him here, but it should not overemphasize the aspect of the party. Okay, proceed. What is your point of intervention, Senator Murkomen?
I agree and sympathize with your position, Mr. Speaker. Only that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, only to, I don't know if my friend Senator Malala is in order to spend a lot of time praising ANC of late, Mr. Speaker. It's a phenomenon that has come in the last like 6 months, Mr. Speaker. Yet, Mr. Speaker, in the past, it was more focused on most of the time talking about NASA or ODM. Mr. Speaker, if he can just focus on the issues, it will save him a lot of comparison, Mr. Speaker, from his past life.
Honorable Senators, you know, people have different ways of surviving. So, Senator Malala is surviving. He knows what he's doing. So let us allow him to proceed. Senator Malala.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you realize that most of these members who are uneasy with me taking a party position do not have a definite political party at the moment, Mr. Speaker. That is why they are envious, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was making my submission as to why I, the senator of Kakamega, elected on an ANC party, is supporting the BBI, Mr. Speaker. And my focal attention was drawn on the fact that this document provides that we are going to strengthen devolution in the sense that the resources that are now going to go to our counties are going to be increased. Mr. Speaker, our counties have been surviving with a mere 15%, and sometimes even less, Mr. Speaker. But this document has provided for a 35% provision, Mr. Speaker, whereby county governments will gain in a very big way, Mr. Speaker, when this bill is passed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we pass this bill, it is also important, Mr. Speaker, to remind the players of devolution that giving you 35% is not enough.
that the solutions of the problems facing our counties will not be achieved when we pass this bill. Yes, we are giving you 35%, but it is important, Mr. Speaker, for the county governments, Mr. Speaker, to use this money appropriately, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've seen county governments misusing and misappropriating funds, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, in this dispensation, we've had so many cases of impeachments, Mr. Speaker. And it is not, Mr. Speaker, our role as Senate, Mr. Speaker, is first to defend devolution. But we need to ensure that the monies that go to the county governments, Mr. Speaker, are well spent, Mr. Speaker. This brings me back to what I saw in Naivasha, Mr. Speaker. When we were converging in Naivasha, Mr. Speaker, members of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, ganged up and insisted that the Constituency Development Fund must be in the Constitutional Amendment Bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to blame ourselves because, Mr. Speaker, we were unable to ensure that the oversight fund is encapsulated in this document, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, to know that most of the senators are unable to conduct their oversight roles in the county assembly, in the county governments, because they lack the infrastructure and the monetary muscle, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they oversight the county governments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in a county like Kakamega, Kakamega is a very vast county.
I can see a point of intervention from Cherargei.
Hey.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order to say, because, and then I'm the chair emeritus of JLAC, we did draft submissions that were presented by the then Deputy Speaker, Professor Kithure Kindiki, in KICC before the BBI Secretariat. Is it in order for the Honorable Senator and leader of Kakamega delegation to tell this House that the Senate did not make their position known, yet we did submit upon your directions before the BBI Secretariat? Is it in order to mislead when people are taking chai and mandazi in Naivasha to refer that it was a serious forum? Is it in order?
Mr. Speaker, I think we have various ways of achieving.
There is another intervention, Senator Malala,
Hey.
from Senator Mogeni.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, you know this is a House of Record. And Mr. Speaker, Senator Malala, who is my good friend, is creating an impression before the House that in Naivasha, when members of National Assembly were agitating for CDF, that we never agitated for an oversight fund for the Senate. But everybody who was in Naivasha, and I have senators around me here, will confirm that we did make presentation, and I'm the one who spoke on behalf of senators, that the oversight fund should be included in the Constitutional Amendment Bill. But what happened, Mr. Speaker, is that whereas the position of MPs was taken on board and included in the proposed amendments to Article 206A, the position of the Senate was not taken on board. So it is misleading, Mr. Speaker, to state that the senators did not agitate. I think the correct position should be, Mr. Speaker, that we did put forth our position, but the drafters of this bill, for reasons that we don't know, opted to take on board the position of members of National Assembly, but left out the request that was put forth by the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, if you read the BBI report, my name appears on page 166 as one of the members of Parliament who made a detailed representation before the BBI task force. So you should not be left to mislead the House, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, I know we are cautious, as we should be, of COVID. But my good chairman, Senator Mogeni, is doing us a great disservice. We love hearing his contribution, but when he wears 5 masks, you know, he's muffled. He's muffled, we can't hear his voice. And I am sure he had a good point. Could you just assure him to reduce at least even 3 and use one so that we can hear him when he's speaking. I've heard nothing at all, Mr. Speaker. And he's a senior counsel. Don't deny us the benefit of hearing you, Senator Mugeni.
Okay, but at least he has spoken. You're saying is the one mask is enough. It's like closing your eyes at night.
I'm just wearing 2, not 5.
Senator Malala, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm well guided by my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I was submitting as follows that it is important that the 35% of the resources that we shall be pumping to the county governments must be used appropriately, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've seen county governments, and I will not mention names today. We've seen county governments which have not fulfilled their promises since they were inaugurated in 2017, and others even in 2013. Mr. Speaker, we have seen governors being brought before the CPIC committee and being brought here for impeachment, Mr. Speaker, having very grave allegations, Mr. Speaker, on misuse of public funds. And therefore, we want to give them notice, Mr. Speaker, that the 35% that we are taking to the counties is not money meant for corruption, is not money meant for accumulation of wealth, Mr. Speaker. It is very important, Mr. Speaker, for the county governors to know that we have fought for this 35%, and the 35% is meant to help the Mwananchi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, prioritization of county projects is very key, Mr. Speaker. We have seen governments and county governments which prioritize only brick and mortar development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, county governments are unable to initiate projects which are going to stimulate our respective economies at the county level, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have seen counties which have tried coming up with cottage industries, but other counties, Mr. Speaker, and I want to be very specific on this issue, Mr. Speaker. When you come to Kakamega County, Mr. Speaker, since 2013, we have no single flagship project which was launched and is functioning at the moment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very important, Mr. Speaker, as we take the 35% to the county governments, Mr. Speaker, we ensure as senators, we ensure that the county governments use the money in the appropriate way, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm alive of the fact that this is the last financial year to the 2022 elections, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, as senators, having been given powers to oversight the county governments, we ensure that, Mr. Speaker, that when the county governments will be making their budgets of 2021-2022, we ensure that we compel the county governments to complete their flagship projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second reason as to why we are supporting BBI, we need to walk down the memory lane and remind ourselves, how did this BBI concept come up? Mr. Speaker, I want to remind ourselves that the BBI process began through the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Mr. Speaker, this came up after a very divisive election in 2017 and even in the previous years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the handshake which gave birth to BBI was meant to solve certain problems. And we need to ask ourselves, has this document issued solutions to the said problems, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, one of the problems that we faced before the handshake was this country was getting into, in every electioneering year, Mr. Speaker, we were getting into a divisive election, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to remember the 2007 elections, whereby blood was shed, Mr. Speaker, just because of a vote, Mr. Speaker. I want to remember the 2017 elections, Mr. Speaker. We ran around this country, Mr. Speaker, protesting. We even risked our lives, Mr. Speaker, to go and swear in a people's president, Mr. Speaker. And these were the reason why this document, Mr. Speaker, was brought forth. So we need to ask ourselves, has this document sorted out the issue of a divisive election, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, one among the key issues that the BBI, the handshake, brought about was the shared prosperity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to speak, and I want to talk to the young senators of this House. I want to talk to Senator Cherargei. I want to talk to Senator Sakaja. I want to talk to Senator Anwar. We need to have an opportunity to speak out our minds at this time. This is our moment. When James Orengo was a youth, he spoke his mind out. When Raila Odinga was a youth, he spoke his mind out. I want to urge the youth of this House, Mr. Speaker, to speak your mind. And I want to speak my mind on this particular issue, Mr. Speaker. Shared prosperity. Shared prosperity. Mr. Speaker, if we do not sort out this problem at this juncture, we are lying to ourselves. This document will remain to be an academic document, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to remain focused on the issue of putting our country together, cohesion and integration. And the only way we can achieve this, Mr. Speaker, is by ensuring that the resources and the opportunities that are available for this country are shared equitably, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Nderitu, what's your point of intervention?
I hope they're not eating into
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to get the clarification from the Senator of Kakamega, whether Senator Anwar, Senator Sakaja, Senator Cherargei.
Senator Malala, you are being addressed, so
yes,
take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, I was wondering whether Senator for Kakamega was in order to ask whether Senator Sakaja, Senator Anwar, Senator Cherargei, whether they have not spoken their mind. I'm wondering whether he's speaking on their behalf or they have not spoken their mind. I didn't get.
I think you just made reference to the youthful senators who are here that this is the moment to speak. It doesn't mean they have not spoken. The old ones have already spoken their mind. That's what he said.
Yeah.
They spoke their mind when they were youths. That's what he said. Senator Malala
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I hope they're not eating into my time, Mr. Speaker. And those interventions are disrupting my thought process, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we don't solve this problem of an equal distribution of resources and opportunities in this country, then this BBI document will remain to be an academic document. Mr. Speaker, we must tell our people right now, Mr. Speaker, that there are certain parts of this country which have been neglected, Mr. Speaker. I want to speak for my people here today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, the Western region has been neglected by this government. There is no single factory that is operating in Western region. The sugarcane farmers are languishing in abject poverty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is true. We do not have a single industry to employ our youth in the entire Western region. Nzoia Sugar Company is closed. Mumia Sugar Company is closed. Chemilil is closed. Moroni is closed, Mr. Speaker. Sony Sugar Company is closed. Webuye Pan Paper is closed, Mr. Speaker. We have not seen the enthusiasm of the government to sort out the problems in Western Province, Mr. Speaker. We have seen a lot of energy, Mr. Speaker, in this government, Mr. Speaker.
Do you want to be informed, Senator Malala?
Mr. Speaker, they're interrupting my thought process.
No, we will, I'll add you some more time. Do you want to be informed?
Yeah, I can listen to you.
Okay, Senator Linturi.
You know, there's a powerful legislator and a good man who at times speaks for the good of his people. But Mr. Speaker, when he gets to situations where he laments of what is happening or continues to happen, I think, Mr. Speaker, he must be able to know and take his people in a different trajectory considering that major problem has been, number one, their failure to read the signs of the day, and because as they wait to complain, they are waiting for an endorsement, and they can't see even the presidency itself is divided, and that document is not meant to bring unity because the center is not voting.
What's your point of, there's a point of intervention, Mr. Malala? Chirarge.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the future of Western Kenya and the future of Kakamega County, Senator Cleophas Malala, the former deputy minority leader, to say, is it in order to say that BBI brought prosperity, unity, and peace, and including economic prosperity, then go ahead and lament that there is nothing that is happening in Western Kenya? Why is he having double speak? And yet he's saying the handshake has promoted peace, has promoted unity, has promoted development. Is it in order for Senator Cleophas Malala to double speak, to speak from both sides of his mouth on this issue? He should either tell us he should not become a hermaphrodite, Mr. Speaker, by saying he's supporting the BBI, then he goes ahead and also bashes it. He's giving us a kiss of Judas, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Malala, I know you are equal to the task. In terms of language, you can respond to.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just picking cue from my father, Senator Wetangula, who speaks his mind and votes otherwise, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I was interrupted, Mr. Speaker.
There's a point of order from Senator Wambua.
Mr. Speaker, is the Senator of Kakamega in order to impute improper motives on his uncle, Senator Moses Masika Wetangula? Can he give an example where Senator spoke differently from how he voted?
I hope you are not holding brief for Senator Wetangula. I'm sure Wetangula will come and he will answer him appropriately. Senator Malala.
Mr. Speaker, back to my point, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to illustrate how certain regions in this country, Mr. Speaker, have been neglected to the advantage of certain other regions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would want to live in a country whereby the sugarcane farmer in Western region, Mr. Speaker, welcome, Senator. Mr. Speaker, I was speaking on the issue of the farmer, the sugarcane farmer, and I have said on the floor of this House that Senator Wetangula has been on the forefront fighting for the farmers of the Western region, Mr. Speaker. And I want to join you, Mr. Speaker, in saying that I want to see a day in this country, Mr. Speaker, when the sugarcane farmer in Kakamega is treated the same way with a coffee farmer in Central Province, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to see a day in this country when the sugarcane farmer or a maize farmer in Kakamega County is treated the same way with an Irish potato farmer in Kirinyaga County, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is what we call shared prosperity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the public service, Mr. Speaker, it is quite a shame that some of the communities in this country are not well represented in the public service. And I hope that BBI is going to sort out this problem. Let us not use, Mr. Speaker, these exercises, Mr. Speaker, to woodwink some of us to pass it and then go back to the normal practices we've had, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi, what's your intervention?
Mr. Speaker,
You know, I know the senator for Kakamega was just about to conclude his contribution, but he misleads this house and misleads the country when he creates the impression that there is preferred or preferential treatment of farmers in central Kenya region, Mr. Speaker, because he says he would want to see a time when the sugarcane farmer in Kakamega will be treated like the coffee farmer in Mount Kenya region, Mr. Speaker. The coffee farmers of Mount Kenya region have tremendous problems, multiple problems that we are trying to address, which date back many, many years ago, Mr. Speaker. And so, creating the impression that, Mr. Speaker, that there is any preferential treatment of any farmers in Mount Kenya region, Mr. Speaker, is wrong, Mr. Speaker. And because I'm seeing Senator Wetangula in the usual style, Mr. Speaker, of coaching coaching Senator Malala on how to come and answer, and say that there is money that has been given preferably or in a preferred way to the farmers of Mount Kenya region.
What's your point of order?
My point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that
Is there a point of order from Senator Wet? Or is on a point of order?
Mr. Speaker, my point of order is very simple, that there is no preferential treatment that is preferred against the farmers of Mount Kenya region, that all the problems that and challenges that the farmers of this country are facing are uniform. And what we should be addressing is how are we going to ensure that the problems that farmers, who are people who contribute largely into this in this country's welfare, how are we going to resolve their problems? But not to try and create a division in between, giving the wrong impression, Mr. Speaker.
There's another point of order from Senator Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, you know, the Bible says a wicked man is always running even when he's not being chased. And Charles Dickens said, a coward will always whistle in the dark, hoping he'll scare away invisible enemies and ghosts. Mr. Speaker, the distinguished senator for Kiambu, a great friend of mine, knows very well that the inequality that we keep crying about is real. I brought a question to this House, Mr. Speaker. It is still pending before the Agriculture Committee. And when the senator for Kiambu stood up and attempted to dispute the facts, he fell flat on his face, Mr. Speaker. That 3.6 billion shillings called the Cherry Fund from the World Bank coming to revive coffee was given to one region of the country to the total exclusion of everybody else. Areas that grow coffee, Nyamira, Kisii, Nandi, Kericho, Vihiga, Kakamega, Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, and Uasin Gishu were completely left out. All the 3.6 billion went to one region. If that is not marginalization and exclusion, then English has lost meaning.
Senator Ephraim Maina, there's a point of order from Ephraim Maina first. Then
which is always being propelled that Central Province has been favored during colonial days. Central Province even now enjoys some favoritism, and Mr. Speaker, the way the sugar farmers are suffering in Eastern Kenya, it is the same way our farmers, coffee farmers in Central and the other places, Ukabani, and anywhere, anybody growing coffee today is suffering. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, let them bring out their issues, but not try to insinuate that Central, maybe the favoritism to Central region is the one causing their, their suffering. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind Mr. Malala what they have been told many times. At one time during Moi's government, they had 7 ministers in his cabinet, Mr. Speaker, and the industries he's talking about, they have been in government, sometimes more than Central, and they could have sorted themselves out. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, is Mr. Malala in order to bring this notion and propagate it to the whole nation, which is divisive.
There's a point of order from Tula Kalonzo Jr. I'll come.
Mr. Speaker, I think we're splitting hairs. That's one. In recognition of marginalization in this country, the Building Bridges Initiative acknowledged that Kenya has marginalization. We have a report here tabled that shows the rest of the country as red and a small portion of this country as green, tabled by CRA. In fact, at some point, and I've said this on the floor, that verse in the Bible that says, those who have more shall be given, and those who have little, even the little that they have shall be taken away from them, is a true story of Kenya. So what Senator Malala is saying is that we hope that in the BBI, in the Building Bridges Initiative, you're going to bridge this disparity. Isn't it a fact that there is 2,500 kilometers of tarmac in Senator Omatangi's county, whilst there is 750 kilometers of tarmac in Kakamega? The whole county. It's a fact. So let's not go into those details, because if we do, this debate is going to degenerate into why the rest of the country is red, and I will bring the marginalization policy which I have in my office, and the rest of the country, some parts of the country are green. Thank you.
Just a minute, Harake. I'll give you. Let me also give an opportunity to those who have not said.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think my good friend, Senator of Machakos, actually stole my thoughts. So, but that having been said, is the rest of, Makweni, sorry, is the rest of, you know, Senator Malala has said how Western Kenya has been marginalized, and Central is saying they're marginalized, and the coffee farmers. Who is talking about the livestock farmers who've never even been mentioned, who've been on the periphery of everywhere, who have never ever been even within BBI, they're still not being mentioned. So I think it's about time we stopped lamenting and started looking properly and equally at these things, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, what's your point of order, Wetangula? Then Senator Kimani.
Mr. Speaker, we should not let facts be swept under the carpet. The distinguished senator for Nyeri, the tycoon, and the distinguished senator for Kiambu actually are contradicting the President of the Republic of Kenya, whom they profess to support. Because the President of the Republic of Kenya, whom we support, sat down with the leader of ODM, and among the many things they listed for BBI was that there was marginalization. There was unequal development. There were unequal opportunities to Kenyans, and many other historical wrongs that we need to change. And Mr. Speaker, when we live a lie, and when we live in denial, then we cannot solve the problems of this country. When we stand here, Mr. Speaker, and say, this and this area has a comparative advantage over this other area for the following reasons, these are facts. For example, Mr. Speaker, Nairobi, one would think Nairobi is rich. the highest concentration of poor people in Kenya is in Nairobi. And this is a fact. And we want to see Kibra, we want to see Mathare, Mukuru, and all these become part of our history, not part of our present and future. So I want to urge Senator Omatangi and Senator Ephraim Maina not to live a lie that even the president has acknowledged. He didn't say which area is advantaged and which one isn't, but he said there are areas that are advantaged and there are areas that are disadvantaged.
Okay.
So let's proceed, Mr. Speaker, with what Senator Malala, my distinguished son, is saying. That, Mr. Speaker, to support the BBI bill does not take away your ability to be critical about issues in it. Because if we don't do that, then the bill would have been put on the table, we would have noted and voted. That's why we are debating. That's why Abshiro is talking about livestock. That is why young Cherargei was yapping here and crying about tea. And others, Mr. Speaker. Let's not live a lie, for heaven's sake.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi, what's your point of order? So try to keep them short so that we make progress.
Mr. Speaker, in raising my point of order against what Senator Wetangula has said, Mr. Speaker, I will not go into the details of trying to narrate to this House and tell a story of how the coffee they speak about is being uprooted in Kiambu, in Nyeri, and wherever by farmers who are desperate. I will not go to that story. But let me go straight to the point of order I want to raise, especially about Senator Wetangula. A senator who has served in this House for 2 terms and in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. And first, he's out of order. Because when he comes to the dispatch box here, Mr. Speaker, and tells this House, Mr. Speaker, that we are out of order because he bases his argument on a question he posed to a committee which is yet to be responded to, and yet he comes here with an answer and says that he sent a question saying that there has been money alleged which has been taken to one region. That question has not been, he is the one who is telling the House that question is still with the Committee on Agriculture. Yet he comes with an answer. But Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order. The senator for Bungoma is absolutely out of order, Mr. Speaker. He cannot pretend that he will come here and provide the same answer he's seeking for. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, you know, when the history of this country about marginalization is told, and I think that's the way it should be, the people of Mount Kenya region should speak. We should say why we live entirely in a whole region, in quarter by quarter portions of land, while people in this country, Mr. Speaker, still live in thousands and thousands of acres, Mr. Speaker, people have got in each region areas where they can claim that there is marginalization. So if we try to pick specific places whereby we will be saying that this section is marginalized because they have this problem, or these ones have that problem, Mr. Speaker, we can all claim historically that there are areas where we have not been treated right by the systems which were there since colonialism, Mr. Speaker. And we cannot attempt, Mr. Speaker, to bring another narrative, Mr. Speaker. And so I want to urge my colleagues, if you want us to build a good country and a country for all of us, let us focus on how we are going to build a modern day country with equal opportunities with our new devolution, our new constitution. Let us not try to go into the past and paint a wrong picture that is dividing this country and sending the wrong impression. Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Speaker.
Sakaja, order senators. Please, let's keep our points of order brief because time is of essence. You know, we are about to adjourn. Senator.
Mr. Speaker, this is the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. This is a house of equalization, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while facts can be stated, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing that a rose flower smells better than cabbage. But wisdom is then knowing also that it might not taste better if you cook it. Mr. Speaker, even as we speak about the situations in this country, what does BBI present us? It's an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to change from, we cannot be merchants of despair in this country, in this house, and perpetuate an us versus them narrative, Mr. Speaker. You know, the politics of seesaw, that you're up because I'm down, and I'm down because you're up, is really what we're trying to move beyond in this country. It is true, many parts of this country, including Nairobi, have been marginalized. But as the people who Kenya is looking at today, what hope are we spreading You know, I cannot say that my farmer does not have because his has. Because then we're creating further division, Mr. Speaker. So I just pray, as Senator Mutula said, instead of splitting hairs, as we cannot, where we have been as a country, take cognizance of that, but then perpetuate hope and present a future for this country by saying this is what BBI then is presenting, and this is where we want to go as a country. That is what is Siasa Safi.
Order, Senator.
Otherwise, everyone can complain. I can complain about Kibra, I can complain about Kawangware, and then what are we selling despair to those people or hope? So, Mr. Speaker, let us not dwell on that. Senator Malala has given a very good illustration of his points on BBI. Let's accept reality. We cannot change the history. But we have an opportunity in this House as senators and as leaders to then design the future, Mr. Speaker. That's why we're here.
Order, senators. Order. What you are raising are not points of order. These are just points of argument and positions you are taking. So I direct that Senator Malala concludes his debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my valedictory remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to hope that this document is going to sort out the mess that we've had in the public service, Mr. Speaker. And facts are facts, Senator Wamatangi. You'll ask yourself today evening, who is the head of the executive? Who is the head of the Parliamentary Service Commission? Who is the head of judiciary? Who is the chairman of KRA? Who is the Director General of KRA? Who is the governor of CBK? Who is the KDF Chief General Staff? Who is the Attorney General? Where does he come from? Who is the Solicitor General? Who is the head of Public Service? Who is the CS Public Service? Who is the chairperson, Public Service Commission? And who is the ambassador of US? We cannot lie to ourselves, Senator Wamatangi. Answer yourselves those questions and you'll come to a reality that we have marginalization in this country. Mr. Speaker, in this country we've been having recruitment for army officers across the country, across all districts. But since independence, we've not had our Nyonyi heading the army. We've not had our Fula heading the army. We've not had an IG called Walubengo, Mr. Speaker. Is it that certain people from certain communities qualify more than others, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, as I finish, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to request, Mr. Speaker, that you give me... Come on, Senator.
Order, senators. Let him conclude so that we are able to move. This argument, order, senators. I will give you an opportunity to bring statements so that you argue. Okay, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, you know, I thought it is you, Mr. Speaker, you've just given a ruling a few minutes ago on the way to proceed. But Mr. Speaker, I'm unsettled when again you allow the senator for Kakamega on the same trajectory, and you alluded very well to what Senator Sakaja said. Now he starts naming names and saying we've never had. Why isn't he saying why do we have Alusaka as the Speaker of the Senate? Why? I mean, why isn't he saying that, Mr. Speaker? You know, and if he wants to send us on the same journey, my friend, we can go and get a list of every person from the people you are naming who has served and who is serving in the positions in Kenya. That narrative is a lost narrative. That's a narrative to divide the country, and that cannot be allowed in the modern day Senate, Mr. Speaker. We are doing the wrong thing. He cannot be allowed to continue to tell this country that we are divided along divisive lines of tribalism, Mr. Speaker, in modern day Kenya. And then he gets away in the Senate. He cannot.
Okay, you have made your point of order. What's your point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wouldn't want to go to that trajectory. Is it in order for Senator Cleophas Wahungu Malala to mislead Kenyans that under Article 11A, the issue of marginalization and underdevelopment in some regions of this country has been addressed by this constitutional amendment? Is it in order to mislead Kenyans? Because there is nowhere under shared prosperity that has even remotely addressed the issues of marginalization. And is it in order under Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker, the current constitution we have, It has tried to address issues of marginalization. Is it in order to mislead Kenyans that under the BBI or this constitutional Article 11A of BBI on economic and shared prosperity, there is no way. Is it in order for him to mislead Kenyans? And Mr. Speaker, finally, I agree with Senator Wetangula because we sat in the same committee where 3.6 billion cherry fund was given to one region. Nandi never received even a single cent from the World Bank. So some of the facts, Mr. Speaker, I want to advise my colleagues are very stubborn. You can't change.
Senator Malala, conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure you that I'm finishing. But I've come to realize that facts disturb even the dead. Mr. Speaker, we need to ask ourselves, why are we in this situation, Mr. Speaker? And I think the BBI is giving a solution to this. Mr. Speaker, the BBI has provided for a position, a substantive position for the leader of opposition. It is very important, Mr. Speaker, for this country to have opposition, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, the problems we are suffering is because we do not have an opposition in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I was in Standard 6, Mr. Speaker, in my civics lessons, Mr. Speaker, I learned that Parliament is made up of the Speaker, the government side, and the opposition side. Mr. Speaker, when I was admitted in this Senate, Mr. Speaker, I have seen the opposite. It has made me, Mr. Speaker, think that my geography teacher...
Okay, you only have 1 minute.
Me.
I know you are interrupted. 1 minute. Conclude.
I'm finishing. I'm finishing,
minute.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we do not have an opposition that checks the government here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a case in his example is this House, Mr. Speaker, where the leader of majority and the leader of minority walk majestically in the corridors of this parliament as co-joined twins, Mr. Speaker. Nobody is checking each other, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is important that as we pass BBI, we provide a slot for the opposition, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to finish by saying that we do support the BBI process. Personally, I will vote yes. I want to preempt that because this is a document that is going to unite Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. I will join and follow suit the direction being given by my leader, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and Honorable Moses Masika Wetangula. If they say left, I will go left. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Order, senators. I think this House is so well endowed with talent. I want to appreciate Senator Margaret Kamar. What's your point of order, Senator Wambua?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek your guidance. Mr. Speaker, on the 29th day of April, I presented to your office proposed amendments to this bill that we are debating today. The Speaker, I rise to request that you give an indication as to when you're going to give a reasoned ruling on the fate of the proposed amendments. I have tabled 5 amendments, proposed amendments, Mr. Speaker, and so that we are certain as to what direction we are taking, Mr. Speaker, I would request that you give a reasoned ruling on each of the proposed amendments to know where we stand on this matter, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Okay, okay, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to concur with Senator Wambua, not because I support what he's asking for in terms of the content, but because I support why he's asking for it. Mr. Speaker, the day before yesterday, there had been very reasoned and researched 2-hour ruling given in the National Assembly in terms of processing of BBI, in terms of the questions that have been asked by the members of the National Assembly, and whether we agree with the content of it or not. Of course, if you read my minority report, that is where my thinking is. But Mr. Speaker, that ruling gave direction to his House in terms of how they process this debate. Mr. Speaker, if you remember in the Senate Business Committee that was held on Monday, I asked for the same. That even as we process this, it will be important because this house is not subservient to any other house. This house is not an appendage of the National Assembly. The Speaker of the National Assembly is not your senior. Mr. Speaker, as a house, because Article 257 is clear that each house shall process the bill. I want to support the fact that it will be very important that all the questions, if you go to the Hansard, that were asked from the day the bill was tabled to all those who've spoken during the second reading, be responded to before we get to the vote on the second reading. Mr. Speaker, that will give clarity to members whether they want to prepare any amendment, and I personally hold that there should not be none, but it is important for you, Mr. Speaker, to give us that direction as a house as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, it's good to move with precision and clarity. And Senator Wambua's point of order and request is well-founded. That you do give direction. Many of us who support this bill have voiced concern about certain issues in the bill that can create problems. And Mr. Speaker, I don't see the majority or minority leader, but their officers are represented here. As we go to the deputy whips are here. Mr. Speaker, as we move towards the end of this debate, I want to respectfully submit to this House that a process of legislation, particularly on a constitution, is supposed to solve problems, not to create problems. And as my brother, Senator Matangi, sits here as the Chief Whip and his team, I just want to tickle your mind on just 2 points that you need to look at and see whether we are creating a problem for the future or not. Articles, Mr. Speaker, 152, 53, 54, 55 are being amended to remove the approval by the National Assembly of appointments of ministers, of PSS, and others. But, Mr. Speaker, fundamentally omitted is an amendment to Article 132, which remains intact in the Constitution, will remain embedded in the Constitution, and it says the President shall, among other things, that is 132.2 for Senator Wamatangi, that the President shall nominate with the approval of the National Assembly, appoint and may dismiss Cabinet Secretaries, Attorney General, Secretary to the Cabinet, Principal Secretaries, High Commissioners, and so on. Now, when you have removed that vetting in the other articles I've cited, and you have left it intact in Article 132, how are we going to reconcile the provisions of the Constitution? Because somebody will walk to court, and I'm being gratuitous, Senator Matangi, to you and others, that somebody will walk to court and say, Senator Linturi has been appointed a minister, but has not been vetted in accordance with Article 132, is not being touched, and can therefore not hold office. So these are some of the things, Mr. Speaker, I'm just finishing. These are some of the things that those who want to say as is where is must also look broader and see whether we're creating a future problem or not. Just like putting the schedule in the draft bill of the constituencies created, but leaving the authority, the constitutional authority of IEBC, to be the sole authority to delimit and allocate constituencies intact. That again creates a problem. So we are just saying, Mr. Speaker, that we want this bill to go through, but let's not go through and create future problems. Let it go through and make it easier to run our country. And those who are, before, I'm not, Mr. Speaker, bring an amendment. I've asked those who are dealing with the issues to bring amendments if they wish. But the ruling will be yours. As Sakaja says, Mr. Speaker, you are not subordinate to any other house. You are not subordinate to any other speaker. Your ruling must be grounded and founded on your thought process as the Speaker of the Senate.
Senator Mtula Kalonzo Jr.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, thank you. These are the sort of things that make my day as a lawyer. They make you think. They develop your mind. These are the things we were taught in school. A subject called interpretation of the law. You can't hear me because you're wearing 2 masks. Mr. Speaker, the point raised by Senator Wambua is not idle, because it was going to be raised. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, other than Senator Wako, who is here, we actually cannot tell what the intention of the committee of experts at the time was in drafting Article 257 in the manner that it is drafted. But Mr. Speaker, I know you have deferred many rulings. This one you will not defer. This one you must issue. And in issuing your ruling, Mr. Speaker, the committee made a finding led by Senator Okongo Mogeni, Senior Counsel. And we have quoted various jurisdictions, including Latvia, a country which I don't even know where it is, and many others, including Article 368, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Indian Constitution on limitation of Parliament in terms of constitutional making. So, Mr. Speaker, you have an opportunity. And please don't, Sakaja, please don't mislead the Speaker of the Senate by quoting somebody from the neighborhood that has issued a ruling. We are not aware, and we have not seen. And we don't know whether it's detailed because it's not here. So, Mr. Speaker, we are calling upon you to go into the books. And this debate is important. I said, and I've given my position about this. Now, strictly speaking, like a lawyer who has read this. But you're now giving a finding on a matter raised. And you remember a finding made by your predecessors, Speaker Marende, on an issue that was raised in Parliament at some point. So that Article 260, 259 permits the development of the law, contributes to good governance, advances the rule of law, is imputed into this process. Can you amend a constitutional amendment bill under Article 256 and Article 257? Is there a proviso? What did they intend? Because we have also dealt with unconstitutional provisions in the Constitution. In our report, we have said so. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, spare some time, Mr. Speaker, get Nyegenye, Eunice Gishangi, our best draftsman, Dr. Okello, and please, Mr. Speaker, you will be remembered for your ruling on this, Mr. Speaker, because it's important. But I wanted to say this, that those members, Mr. Speaker, who have come to your office with amendments should have been given an opportunity to say what it is they are trying to amend and why, so that you can make a finding. Because we don't know what they are trying to amend, Mr. Speaker, but for posterity, so that we guide another popular initiative, so that one day somebody does not relocate Kenya to another place. Mr. Speaker, it's important we know at what point do we make an entry as Parliament, so that what the Indian Supreme Court was saying in the Minerva case, and I'm quoting this, Mr. Speaker, so that if you write a ruling, please also quote a case like I have quoted. Minerva Mills.
I hope you are not trying to direct what I should
No, I'm
do.
not trying to direct you. I'm trying to help you.
Whip. I don't need help.
No, you do, by the way. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying I'm helping you so that you quote the Minerva Mills when it was quoting and saying, this is the limit and this is the basic structure of this constitution, that there's a limit to what you can amend, even in a popular initiative. The basic structure, Mr. Speaker, that should be the body of your ruling. I'm not trying to guide you. I'm making a submission. Now you are a judge. When you are a judge, you listen and take notes. It's a submission so that, Mr. Speaker, we can guide other popular initiatives. Mr. Speaker, we might have good promoters. A time might come when you have a bad promoter, a dictator, who want to change the structure of the Constitution by using a popular initiative. And, Mr. Speaker, this is critical. Thank you.
Okay, I want to say this, please. Let me say what I want to say. One, this is what I want to respond to what Senator Wambua has raised. At second stage, there are no amendments that have been proposed. The amendments have been proposed at the Committee of the Whole. And I want to assure this House that I will make a ruling before the Committee of the Whole stage. It will be a well-researched ruling, well-reasoned. I'm not a speaker by accident. I have a competent team, and I will give a reasoned ruling. Let's proceed, Senator Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this amendment of the Constitution, first amendment of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it has taken us about 8 years before we did the amendment. This is a long time compared to what most other countries have done. We know that the US in the first year did 6 amendments, and there is nothing wrong with amendments. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to anticipate your ruling on the issue of Article 257, but it's also possible for this House, when it comes to amendments, to use 256 to correct 257 at any other time. The beauty with amendments, according to this Constitution, Mr. Speaker, is that it can be introduced anytime, it can be introduced by anybody, and it should not be limited. So that even as we discuss these amendments, Mr. Speaker, my own feeling is that we should not be trying to overload it. We should deal with it as it is, because we have opportunities to amend and change whatever we wish to change even later. Mr. Speaker, I stand here the way I stood in the year 2010 in the 10th Parliament, knowing that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was not perfect, but supported. I will always be very grateful to one of our members here, Senator Murkomen, who assisted me actually in popularizing the Constitution, because I believed in it despite the few errors that we thought should have been corrected. Mr. Speaker, there are few issues, including the position of Senate, why Senate has been left the way it was, and yet we had very good submissions. Those would be issues that some of us would have said needed to be corrected. But I don't think this is the end of amendments. We can still go back, use Article 256, and amend whatever we want to amend. And I really would like to challenge this House that if it's not this 12th Parliament, it should be the next Parliament that should put Senate in the right position. Because it is very important that as we do more devolution, we actually do more of oversight. Mr. Speaker, why do I support this amendment? I support it for a few reasons, the gains that we have gotten from it, but remember the fact that anything that has not been done properly should be corrected in later amendments. And I think we should actually tell ourselves that the 2010 Constitution has given us opportunities to change anything that we wish to change, either by popular initiative or by Parliament, and we should utilize those clauses. Mr. Speaker, reason number one for me is the same reason I had in the year 2010, the issue of devolution. Devolution, for those of us who were in the bombers process, Mr. Speaker, was a very dear matter. It was very important because the very comments that we are hearing across the House today of marginalization were raised, issues of imbalance in development were raised, and in fact, I'm not surprised, Mr. Speaker, that 257 was crafted the way it was crafted, because for those of us who were in bombers, we had a delegation of 600 Kenyans who were not very comfortable with members of parliament. In fact, they were actually very bitter with the way members of parliament were behaving, and most of their contributions were, if anything, was to distance the members of parliament from changing anything or from amending anything on their behalf. This should be a big lesson for us, Mr. Speaker, and I do remember an articulation of that in the House by my late friend, Kalonzo Senior, who explained to us that the pain that people are going through should not, that we should not change some of the clauses for our own sake. Although we had changes that took place that caused a lot of damage when the Constitution went to Naivasha. Mr. Speaker, for devolution to serve the intentions that were raised in the bombers, we were pushing for a 50-50 division of the revenue of this country, 50% at the national government and 50% at the devolved unit. But again agreed that 15% was useful so that we start training and building capacity at the county level. So for me, number one of the gains that is coming from this amendment is the 35%. And this 35% is very, very important for us because that means we are taking resources and we are starting to balance the development of this country. Mr. Speaker, for us to do that, we must then ask the big question to senators, that when we move 35%
Let's consult
to
in
the
law
counties,
tones. Let's consult in law tones so that Senator
thank you,
Kamar
Mr.
can be
Speaker.
heard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we move 35% to the counties, who actually is going to oversight? And that is why we must quickly come up with a way in which we cause an amendment to make this house the upper house that it should be, and to ensure that there is oversight, because 35% of any country's resources is a very high figure. Mr. Speaker, in fact, the second one to me is the expansion of Senate. The expansion of Senate to 94 is very important. For 35% of the revenue of this country, we must have 35% of representation inside this house. And when we talk of 94 will not be even 35%. So removing women rep and moving and creating seats in Senate, to me, has done the balance of gender, yes. It has not negated the gender issue, but the most important thing is the amount of resources that are here, because those resources must be dealt with properly and we must deal with our governance. The third one, Mr. Speaker, which I find very important, is the World Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, we have had governance issues with governance in this house. We have had issues with governance as per the audit reports that we have received in this house. We have had even governors who have come before us, and we have seen the way funds are being misused in this country. Mr. Speaker, the worst situation is when there is internal imbalance in a county. We have just talked about imbalance of development in the whole country, but within the counties, we have also observed this. I was very fortunate to have been a consultant for COG and the Transition Authority in the 5 years when the Constitution had just been enacted in the first Senate. And my observation which is still current, is the fact that there is a lot of imbalance within the counties as far as development is concerned. For us to deal with that, this cure of having a ward development fund is the most important. We listened in the last legislative forum, Mr. Speaker, we listened to MCS and speakers from our counties requesting that we devolve the funding to the ward. And all they told us was there is a lot of imbalance within the county itself. A governor looks at one county, the county that elected him more favorably than the county that did not elect him, and yet the resources belong to the county. So that is my third point that I really believe should deal with this issue that is called an equitable development in the country. Because if we distribute the funds, even if we distribute 50% of the resources to the counties, the worst problem is when there is imbalance inside the county. And when there is imbalance inside the county, it then degenerates to imbalance of development that will come back here and say that my ward is not as balanced as another. So it is very important that we put structures that that create a good environment for development to take to be equitable in the whole country, because that was the whole reason why the Constitution 2010 was started to begin with. It was all about imbalance and whatever. Mr. Speaker, in Bomas, there was the question of expanded executive. I know everybody is running away from the issue of expanded executive, but actually that was in the draft Bomas resolutions. Before it was changed in Naivasha, that was expanded. Again, the reasons were the same. And the agrimony in Bomas was so high that it necessitated balancing both the development, the resources, and even the executive itself. So this is something that is not new. It is just being replicated here because it was already in the Bomas draft. So I don't see anything that is negative on that one. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be brief because I know we still have a number and we need to be winding up this. But Mr. Speaker, I want to persuade our male colleagues that they have made a number of comments about the expansion of the Senate being women-oriented. I think it is very important to note that the development of a county also requires both gender. And it's very important because there are issues that are gender-related. In fact, when you look at what was devolved, the issue of agriculture, the issue of health, the issue of water, all of them, when you go to the grassroots, affect women more than men. So to me, this was the best thing that happened. So when I had my colleagues saying, why do we want to have more women here, I almost said, maybe we need to elect women first and then nominate men to the counties, because of the fact that actually the development that is expected in the counties, it affects women more than anything. When you talk of health, it affects a woman who is well, who is supposed to go to maternity, who is supposed to be having family planning, more than anybody else. So, Mr. Speaker, I really do support, and I believe that whatever is remaining in BBI that is not as accurate as we wish, we have the opportunity to again use our 256, Article 256, to correct 257. With those remarks, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wako. Senator Wako.
You're speaking next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak on this very important bill. First of all, let me tell the August House that I'm under some handicap in that I cannot now see you because I must have left my glasses on the plane when I was coming. and I've yet to get new ones. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I want first of all to thank the President and my party leader for having seen it fit to appoint me.
Sorry to interrupt you, Senator Wako. I know
Yeah.
we'll be rising at 12:30, and we have another weighty matter at 2:30, and I still see interest, and I did promise that we'll give everybody an opportunity to contribute.
How long do I have?
No, I was just interrupting. I'm giving you back the
5
mic.
minutes.
So I'm saying, no, 20. I'm saying those who will not have an opportunity to speak this morning or this afternoon will have an opportunity to speak next week, so that everybody has an opportunity. Proceed.
So I can start and continue next week, or I must complete?
Continue. You still have time.
Eh?
You still have time.
Oh, I still have time?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I was getting very, very worried. I want to thank the President and my party leader for having seen it fit to appoint me to the task force, to the BBI task force. And I can assure you that me and the late Senator for Garissa, Yusuf Haji, I think we gave it our time, we gave it our all. I can also assure you, dear members, that we did make appropriate recommendations to restore the full status of this Senate to where it should be. That was there fully. But you know, ours was merely to recommend, but there were others to decide. So if you see any So if you see any shortcomings,
There is a point of order from Senator Mogeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I really must appreciate the submissions. And I think this will be the most important submission on this bill from my good friend, Senator Wako. Madam Speaker, Senator Amos Wako has stated that they made recommendations as BBI task force to restore full legislative powers to this House as a Senate, but somebody somewhere interfered. Madam Speaker, can we benefit from his knowledge? And because I know he has the facts and the history, at what stage did that somebody interfere and remove the proposals to give powers from BBI?
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I can't answer that question. Ours was to make recommendations, and other people considered and made decisions thereon. The point I'm trying to make is this, that in a constitutional amendment, which has so many provisions, one is bound to have one or two amendments that you may not like. But your perspective ought to be the overall picture of the amendments. And Madam Speaker, the overall picture of all these amendments, to me, is such that it moves the country forward if enacted. And therefore, I do agree with the report of the committee, joint committee, that we should pass this constitutional bill as it is. I agree entirely with that report. Madam Speaker, this was a popular initiative. And as a popular initiative, if you read Article 257, sub Article 10, it will show you, it will give you a hint that when it came to the popular initiative, the intention was not that that popular initiative should be frustrated or amended completely, by the parliament because it was a popular initiative. A popular initiative is emanating from the citizen of this country, in whom is vested the sovereignty of this country. And we are mere delegatees. They have thought it fit to delegate legislative power to us, but they can at any time take that. And when it comes to matters of legislation, they do take that, the delegated authority to and that's why Article 257, Article 10 is drafted the way it is, in that the parliament was not supposed to interfere with that popular initiative. The history up to that time was that parliament was interfering a lot in the initiatives, in the popular initiatives, and we wanted to put an end to that. And that's why we drafted Article 257, Article 10, to say whether or not parliament amends or fails to pass and whatnot, whatever happens in the parliament. In other words, saying whatever happens in the parliament, it must go to the people the way it is. And I'm glad that the committee, I think, realized that. I can see they were pointing out a few errors here and there, but they realized that, and they recommended that it should go to the people the way as is. And therefore, I rise and stand up to support the word as is. I rise up and support their second amendment, which is that there should be some legislation providing details on how this should be governed and dealt with. And that is for the future. We shall all the time be amending. We shall all the time be improving. A country that is stagnant is not a country that is developing. We must all the time be improving. Madam Speaker, sir, Madam Speaker, a lot has been said, but I want to touch on a few attractive things in this constitutional bill which nobody has talked about, or very few have talked about, have not been around, and I'll explain why. But I want that to go on record. Madam Speaker, the constitutional amendment is proposing, I've got reading glasses so I can put on. Its very first proposal is 10A, under clause 2, regional integration and cohesion. The Constitution it states, the Constitution embraces the goals of African unity and political confederation of Eastern Africa region as integral towards attainment of sustainable development, prosperity for all, and stability. Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam Speaker, political federation to me is very, very important. And as you know, we are members of the East African community, and under the treaty, we are supposed to go through the stages of customs union, common market, monetary union, and it says, and ultimately a political federation. And I'm talking on this because of the very good state visit we have had from the neighboring president, who is also a lady. And we are all very happy to listen to her and confirm that she is indeed supportive of ensuring that the relationship between Kenya and Tanzania, and by extension East Africa as a whole, is smooth. People move. There's a free movement of people, of goods, of services, and so on. And our Constitution now clearly stating that our commitment to that goal. If I may say so, Madam Speaker, for the last 14 days, slightly over 14 days, I've been touring Uganda, and we canvassed the whole of Uganda properly, went through the various towns of Kabale, of Mbarara, of Lira, of Soroti, of Gulu, of Arua in the north, and many other, and Kampala, of course, and so on. Soliciting people's views on the issue of what would they like the confederation be? What should it provide? And we had very supportive statements from everybody that we the people who are now moving this, we the people, we want federation like yesterday, but it's you, the leaders, who are frustrating us. So when we talk about a people initiative, that's what it's all about. The people of this country, of the Eastern African region, support the political confederation as a transition to political federation. They do support that, Madam Speaker, and it has been confirmed. We have visited Burundi. The last 2 weeks we are visiting Uganda. We shall visit Rwanda, South Sudan, Kenya, and Tanzania. And I'm quite, the views we are getting are more or less the same. And when I say we, this is a committee of experts appointed really by the head of state of East Africa to look into this issue. And I want to thank the President again for appointing me to represent Kenya, together with Mr. Kigota, who for 10 years was the Director General of the East African Customs Management. Together we represent Kenya on that particular committee, and that's what we are now doing. So I'm very happy, Madam Speaker, that we have a specific clause in our constitution which underpins that. And as we have heard, the people themselves wanted this. Madam Speaker, still on the issue of integration, you will see there's a new clause 18A, sub-article 2, paragraph H, that it will be the duty of all of us to promote the unity and dignity of Africa and her people. It is now clearly stated there in this amendment, and I support that totally, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you look again, for the first time, we have provided a whole, the BBI, this bill has provided a whole paragraph on economy and shared prosperity. Madam Speaker, if you read the BBI reports, which led to this particular recommendation to amend our constitution to include that, you will realize that the BBI reported a bottoms-up approach to our economy. It recommended that. It is not just a monopoly of one wing of a political party. It was the BBI which recommended a bottoms-up approach to our economy. It's the BBI which said in its report that we should have an economic revolution in this country. And we should have an economic revolution in this country because of the widening gap between the rich and poor. And as we go on, even the rich become smaller and smaller, and the middle class drops down to the poor. And that's a very big recipe for a revolution in any country. And therefore, unless we have an economic revolution to correct this, our future could be at stake as a country. It can provide the instability. It can break down the social fabric, the economic unity of Kenya as we know it today. So, Madam Speaker, I do recommend and support totally clause 3, under which is proposed 11A, economic and shared prosperity. And Madam Speaker, on this issue of shared prosperity, the chair of that committee in BBI has now become a senator, and she's sitting there, the senator of Machakos. So we have been involved in this. So really, I'm asking you to support this bill. Madam Speaker, it is stated under the economic and shared property, again emanating from the report, that, sorry. Let me just put this in. You know, I'm an analog. Yeah, thank you. It's proposed under 11A, we read economy and shared prosperity, and a number of things have been stated there which will lead us to that. But one of the things is that any economic system shall support the small and micro enterprises, Mama Mboga and the rest, small and whatever. So BBI was there before people began promoting bottoms up, who are there, and we recommended. The problem in this country, it's there in the document, people don't read this, what is in the document, come up with other ideas without realizing that actually it's already there. So on one hand, you are reading about it in the document, bottoms up, but another person is opposing that very document, but also promoting bottoms up. So, Madam Speaker, when it comes to economy, I think this bill really supports those issues. Madam Speaker,
Senator
I'm here.
Kavindu, are you on intervention or you are queuing?
No, it's not intervention. I would want to comment after he finishes.
Okay.
Just to support.
That's okay. Thanks.
Madam Speaker, the other thing that people have not talked about very much in this bill, which is I support, the responsibilities, a whole chapter under clause 4 on the responsibilities of a citizen. This constitution recognizes responsibilities of a citizen as key to building a prosperous, fair, and secure nation. And in that, responsibilities of a citizen, we have one of the duties of a citizen, which is to practice ethical conduct and combat corruption. Madam Speaker, one of the two evils that we have in our society is negative ethnicity, is corruption. And it is now clearly stated in our proposals, Mr. Speaker, sir, under this constitutional bill, that every citizen must practice ethical conduct and combat corruption. It's also stated that every citizen has a responsibility to cultivate national unity on the basis of respecting Kenya's ethnic, intellectual, economic, and cultural diversity.
Last 1 minute. The last 1 minute.
Huh?
Have you finished? It was the last 1 minute. You only have 1 minute.
I only have 1 minute.
Yeah, one last minute.
I was really going to submit on this thing. Madam Speaker, I was not here when speakers were speaking for 10, 15 minutes. As I explained, I was out of the country on a very important mission.
Yeah, you have finished your 20 minutes. You have finished your 20 minutes, Senator. But, okay, I can... Oh, okay. Senator Abshiro?
Added 5 more minutes, given that he's actually part of the task force. Some of us are sitting here because of him to learn more.
Okay, thank you. We give you 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Senator.
Thank you very much for your understanding.
Yeah.
Madam Speaker, we also, on the issue of corruption, we have stated under Clause 6 that there should be an effective and expeditious investigation, prosecution, and the trial of cases relating to this chapter. Madam Speaker, this is a chapter that deals with the national values. So we have seen many cases coming, then you forget about them. 2 years down the line, you forget about them. You have elections, the people who are involved in those corruption deeds, they also stand, they use that money to destabilize you in your constituency and so on. Now we are saying, as a constitutional principle, Madam Speaker, that investigations, prosecutions relating to corruption, relating to offenses under that particular chapter should be expedited. And therefore, it will be incumbent upon the various constitutional bodies dealing with investigations, dealing with the prosecution, and even the judiciary dealing with the actual cases to expedite at every stage the investigation, every stage the prosecution, and at every stage the hearing and disposal of those cases, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we, of course, in order to assist in achieving the 2/3 general rule and so on, we have very many provisions. I want to go into them now because of the 5 minutes, but I would draw the attention of the members on Clause 7. Clause 7 is the one which deals with sanctions for a political party that fails to comply with the principle that not more than 2/3 of parties' candidates are of the same gender. Because many of the failures has been that our own political parties, in submitting names, they just submit names of one gender and they forget the other one. But it's now going to be incumbent upon them under this constitution, if it's enacted, that they must, in submitting those names, ensure that that list of theirs complies with the gender rule, which I think is a step forward. Let me not go into the details of the elections and whatnot. I will not talk about the structure of prime minister that everybody has talked on, Madam Speaker. I will talk briefly on the issue of ombudsman. Madam Speaker, this constitution, when it was made public for the first time, it simply stated that there will be a judicial ombudsman appointed by the president, reporting to the president and to parliament. And obviously, that was going to undermine the judicial independence by introducing a person who is appointed by the president, sitting on the Judicial Service Commission, and reporting to the president and to parliament. But Madam Speaker, sir, I'm glad that a number of people did make submissions thereafter, and the original formulation was actually really changed. It really changed in that now the Judicial Ombudsman reports to the Judicial Service Commission and not to the President, and not to, although the report may go to Parliament, but there it had been a report to the President, his appointing authority. So, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, although my preference would have been that the President shall nominate, that the Chief Justice should really be the one to nominate the Ombudsman, with the extra cautions that have now been placed since the first draft came out on the responsibilities of that Judicial Ombudsman, so that everything he does is like he just investigates and gives it to the Judicial Service Commission is not very different from what is there now, because as we are speaking now, the Judicial Service Commission has an ombudsman. But somehow, maybe that ombudsman is not very much known, and maybe because of the low-level status, he does not carry the weight that it is. So what this constitution is doing is to give that ombudsman some status and let everybody know that at least there is somebody they can go to lodge a complaint, which will be investigated, and once investigated, it will go to the Judicial Service Commission. Because part of the complaint was that we received was that the Judicial Service Commission may be because they have representatives from the bench, from the Court of Appeal, from magistrates, from High Court. They tend to protect their own people who voted for them. That's one of the complaints that came around. And therefore, there may be many complaints lying there which they have not dealt with because of that. So the Ombudsman is a good institution. Although it should have been appointed by the Chief Justice, I'm prepared to go with it in view of the amendments that have been made on it under the current constitution. But in the original formulation, if that original formulation had remained, I would have been here to totally oppose it. But now they have softened it, kidogo, and let's hope that it will work and that he must operate through the Judicial Service Commission, who themselves will make a determination about it. Madam Speaker, constituency has been dealt with. The Electoral Commission. Madam Speaker, then we have this Electoral Commission. I mean, these extra constituencies. Madam Speaker, according to the report that was received, there are a number of counties which ought to have received additional members also, if the same criteria was to apply throughout. And I know my friend Kitui is one such county. It got 0, whereas according to the population, it should have received at least 1. There is also Migori. There's also, there are 3 of them which are in the report. A way has to be found where, how that can be rectified. But it will not be by amending this. Yeah. But I'm quite sure that even if this goes through, they can be given priority. I, for one, myself, I'm glad that one of the protected constituencies in my county, which if that formula had applied, that constituency would have gone. But it has been protected. So I take, I'm happy with the report that that particular Budalangi and Samia, they have been protected under this, whatever. Madam Speaker, my 5 minutes are almost going. I think we have the Vihiga.
As a point of order,
With those few remarks,
with
those few remarks, with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the report as recommended by the Joint Committee.
Thank you very much, Senator. What was your point of order in relation to a contribution on the floor?
Yes, Judge Justice Mazayo, we have one speaker. I sought guidance from the speaker. I got a point of order before Senator Emeritus. AG concluded his
then you
submission.
speak to the speaker. You don't talk to Justice Mazayo.
Yes, I'm addressing the speaker. Madam Speaker, is it in order for Senator Wako, Senior Counsel, to keep telling this House and the country that a way must be found to rectify the wrongs that are in this document, including giving Kitui County that extra constituency as envisaged in the report, and not telling us which which that way is. If that way is not this house, which way is that? That will be found to rectify these wrongs, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senators. Senator of Kitui, unfortunately, it went out of, the point of order came outside the time for the Senator Wako. But you have said it. Honorable Senators, it is now 12:30 p.m. Time to interrupt the business of the Senate. The House therefore stands adjourned until today, Thursday, the 6th May 2021 at 2:30 p.m.